If you've never used an electric pressure cooker before, it can be a little bit of a learning curve, and that's probably why your Instant Pot has been sitting in your pantry or the garage or in the box for years. So today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to actually understand how to use your Instant Pot, how it works, with easy to remember analogies and ways to understand this crazy appliance so that you can live your best life in the kitchen. So let's get started. An Instant Pot is a brand of electric pressure cooker, and it is not a slow cooker or crock pot. This video will apply to almost all electric pressure cookers if you have a different brand, but Instant Pot is kind of the top name brand of electric pressure cooker. Now, these Instant Pots do have a slow cooker function, which kind of works like a crock pot or slow cooker, but honestly, it's not amazing, and I actually still have one of my crock pots because I like using that for just slow cooking exclusively. These work better for pressure cooking. An Instant Pot is an appliance that cooks your food by locking in steam and pressure inside of this cooking vessel. All that steam and all that pressure increases the temperature of this pot, and that's why your food can cook in a fraction of the time as normal cooking methods. So just remember, everything you make in an Instant Pot is cooked with steam and liquid. Nothing you make in here is going to come out crispy or baked on its own. That's one of the other frequently asked questions is, can I fry in an Instant Pot? Well, you can't pressure fry like you see at these big chain restaurants. This is not a pressure fryer. That's totally different. And if you try and pressure fry in this, you are in for a world of trouble. That's really unsafe, so don't try that, please. So I'm going to tell you first about the Instant Pot anatomy, so then you know and kind of understand all of these different parts. Most people have this model, which is a 6-quart Instant Pot. This is kind of the medium, standard, middle of the road size that I recommend to almost everyone. Instant Pot also makes an 8-quart Instant Pot, which is massive. This is the 8-quart Instant Pot Duo Plus, and it is huge. I honestly do not ever really use this unless I'm making like Thanksgiving dinner or I need like something really large for a large quantity. This is not for my day-to-day cooking. If you regularly cook for a large family, then yes, an 8-quart is a great idea. You can watch my video on which Instant Pot to buy. I'll link that over here. But this video, I'm just showing you kind of the different models, but you probably have this one. Instant Pot also makes a 10-quart version, which is even bigger than this. I feel like it's probably going to be the size of like a small baby bathtub. It is not something that first-time pressure cookers, first-time like cooks, beginner cooks, even like intermediate cooks should take or should get, because recipes are not formulated for a 10-quart Instant Pot. Most all recipes are going to be made and tested on a 6-quart Instant Pot. A 10-quart is going to, and even an 8-quart, sometimes you have to adjust the liquid, adjust the time. So unless you're a very advanced cook and you feel confident using a 10-quart, stick with like a 6 or an 8-quart. Okay, this is also one of my favorites. This is the little baby mini 3-quart Instant Pot that Instant Pot makes, and I love this guy so much. It's about half the size, well, it is half the size of the 6-quart Instant Pot, and it is so good for making sides, for making yogurt, for doing any little side jobs where you're going to do the main dish in the Instant Pot, like the 6-quart or 8-quart, and then this small one is so good for small batch sides, for single serving meals. I use this one all the time. So in my last 101 video that is like several years old, someone asked to see the different sizes of the liners, so I'm going to show you that really quick. Okay, so this is the 8-quart size. 6-quart fits really snugly in there. It's just not quite as deep. So you can see there's like a little bit of space here. And then this is the 3-quart size inside of the 6. So this is kind of, you can see the difference in liner size. Okay, so when you watch videos or you read recipes, there's going to be several different parts of an Instant Pot. So this main part right here, this is called the Instant Pot base. This is where all of your controls are going to be. That's where the power cord is. This is like the main unit. The heating element is also inside of the base, and then inside of the base is the liner. This is the Instant Pot liner, and you can buy extras of these, which is so nice if you're going to be cooking multiple things. You can just like swap one in or out. I have like Literally, I think I have about 10 of these. And so they're really nice if you want to just store like leftover soup straight from the Instant Pot. Obviously let it cool, and then you can put it in your fridge, and then you have one for, you know, making something else the next day. The base is stainless steel here, and so it's really easy to clean. I really like that. This also does not get very hot while cooking. It might get a little warm, but it's not going to be hot. You can touch the sides, and so that's really nice. This is the inner base, and in here you see the heating element. You never put food down there. I know that sounds dumb, but literally every single day I am on all the Instant Pot Facebook groups, support groups, all of that. People cook in here thinking this is where they do their cooking. So don't do that. If you accidentally put liquid, food, or anything in here, clean it out the best you can. Just scrape everything out, let it dry completely before you try using it again, and then hopefully it will work. So of course, then we have the lid, and the lid has a bunch of its own components as well. So this is the lid, and inside of the lid, there's several different components. The most important part of the lid is this. It's called the sealing ring. This sealing ring is what makes the Instant Pot seal and lock in that pressure. So you definitely need to make sure you have this every single time you pressure cook. A lot of people have really firm rings right when they get a brand new Instant Pot. And so I have another video on everything you need to know about the Instant Pot lid. I'll link that up here as well. But to get it in and out, you just pull it in, and then you kind of have to push it under this little ring here. Super simple, but it's very important that it's snug in here correctly. Otherwise, your Instant Pot will not come to pressure and your food will not come out the way you planned. Other parts of the lid are just over here. These accommodate the pressurizing, depressurizing, and on the outside here, this is the sealing knob and this is the sealing pin, and this will pop up, and I'll tell you more about that later. One thing to note with the lid is that the lid does get extremely hot while pressure cooking. So when it's pressure cooking, you can touch the sides, you can kind of move it around this way, but don't touch this top part. It is so freaking hot, you will burn yourself. There's actually a little sticker right here that tells you do not touch this because, like I said, extremely hot. You can obviously touch the handle, but do not touch the lid while pressure cooking. One tip I have is not to store your Instant Pot with the lid on. So if your Instant Pot is sitting in your pantry, in your cupboard, whatever, with the lid on like this, don't do that. Instead, take your lid off and store it like this upside down. That is going to allow airflow in and out of the base unit, in and out of the liner, and in and out of the lid. It's like if you have a dirty Tupperware, it doesn't even have to be dirty, but if you have a Tupperware and you store it with the lid on, it's going to kind of trap some smells, and that's really not appetizing. Especially with pressure cooking, you don't want the last thing you cook to impart those flavors and aromas into your new dishes. Another tip I have with the lid is that you can place the lid right here on the base on either side. There's these little wings over here, and you can put the lid right like that on either side. So it's so nice. You don't have to put the lid like with it dripping and hot on your counter. It always has a built-in lid here. The very base model Instant Pot does not have these little wings, and this is one of the main reasons why I don't suggest using that one or buying that one. But these are so nice. People lose their minds whenever they learn about this for the first time. Just place your lid right there. Another tip I have to correctly put the lid on and off the base. You can totally tell how experienced an Instant Pot cook is based on how long it takes them to put the lid on. So if they're like fumbling with it, and you know, one time I watched a TV segment where the lady was making an Instant Pot recipe and it took her like 40 seconds to put the lid on because like she couldn't line it up. And so I knew instantly she does not use her Instant Pot ever. Okay, so this is my tip. Right back here on the base, you have this like lid area. So instead of lining up these arrows where it says like on, off, and it says that on the base, on, off, what I tell people is to just line up this big part on the lid with the big part on the base. So you always start on this side of this big part of the lid. You just put this big part of the top lid. I know I'm being very descriptive. And then you just twist it on. It's so much easier to line it up on the base than it is to line up these arrows on the front. Just trust me. So once you ensure that you have your food in there, everything, and then your sealing ring is in there, you correctly put the lid on, now you can actually cook something. So the next most important part is to always make sure that your lid is in the sealing position. On your Instant Pot, there is this little sealing knob which does come out, so you can clean it. You can take that out, but when you're pressure cooking, it always needs to be in this sealing position. Some models of Instant Pot have automatic lids, so then you don't ever have to worry about that. They look more like a little slide button and not a knob like this. But if you have a model like mine, you always have to make sure this sealing knob is in the sealing position. One more thing to remember on your base is on the back. On the back, there's this little guy. It's called the Condensation Collector. This Condensation Collector is just right here on the back, and it collects from a little hole in the base. So if there's ever any food along the outside of the base from the lid, it will all drip down into this hole and collect right here. A lot of people forget about this, but make sure that you're checking on this occasionally. To take it off, you just kind of like twist it off a little bit like that. If this gets filled up with food, it can like mold and get disgusting. So make sure you're keeping an eye on it. Mine rarely really fills up, but if it does, make sure you wash it out. Next, let's talk about the buttons. A lot of people get super overwhelmed about the interface, all these buttons on the Instant Pot. Let me tell you, you don't have to worry. I've got this covered for you. So right now I'm going to tell you the most important and really one of the only buttons you're going to use on the Instant Pot is the manual button. Some of the newer model Instant Pots have a pressure cook button. They're the same thing. Manual and pressure cook are the same thing. Not to be confused with pressure, which is to change the pressure from high to low. It's going to always say pressure cook or manual. This is basically the same thing as the time cook feature on your microwave. So on my microwave, I usually have like, press at 30 seconds, and that's usually what I use. Or I'll just use the time cook feature and say, this is the exact specific amount of time I want you to cook. That's what the manual or pressure cook button is going to be on your Instant Pot. Just like how on your microwave, which this is mine up here, just like your microwave has all of those different settings, so does your Instant Pot. But let me tell you this, the soup, meat, beans, rice, multigrain, porridge, steam, like those are all presets. So don't worry about having to use those when you're making beans, when you're making meat. Just don't worry about it. Just honestly, just stay with the pressure cook or the manual button and follow the recipes. You'll be totally fine. When you press the manual button, it will automatically go to high pressure versus low pressure with the time set from the last cook. So I press manual, the last thing I cooked in here for 30 minutes, so that's what it remembered, and it's going to just wait, and then it will register on. So in a second here, it will, just like this, it will beep a couple times and say on. That just means that the Instant Pot has registered what you asked it to do, which was to manually pressure cook this on high pressure for 30 minutes. If you want to adjust the time, all you need to do is press the manual or pressure cook button on your Instant Pot and then use the plus or minus buttons right here to adjust the time to whatever you want. You can even go down to 0 minutes, which is what I recommend for fast cooking and tender foods like broccoli. The Instant Pot also goes up to 240 minutes, and that is for really long pressure cooks for, I don't even know what you'd pressure cook that long, but the max I usually do is 120 minutes for foods like bone broth, when you really want to get all of those yummy nutrients and stuff out of bones. Like I mentioned before, the Instant Pot will default to high pressure. If you want low pressure for whatever reason, you can change that by pressing the manual button and then pressing the pressure button right here. This is not pressure cook, it's pressure. So if you press pressure, it will say low pressure, or you can adjust it over to high pressure. 99.9% of recipes use the high feature. That's like the default. So unless the recipe specifies, leave it on high pressure. If you need to use the low pressure, then you can change it to low. The second most important button on your Instant Pot is the saute button. The saute feature on an Instant Pot is so amazing because there's so many recipes, like for a crock pot, you need to brown the ground beef before you put it in, or you need to sear some chicken breast before you put it in the slow cooker to like get all that flavor. Well, in a crock pot, you can't do that, but in an Instant Pot, they have a built-in saute feature, which is life-changing. It's also really nice because if you just need to saute or cook something, it basically just turns into like a pot on a heating element. Like you can just saute whatever you need in here. You don't need to pressure cook if you're low on space. This is a fantastic appliance because you can do so much in it. So the saute button is just right over here in the corner. And here's the thing, you cannot use the saute feature when the lid is on. So when you press the saute button, you always need to make sure that the lid is off, because if you put the lid on while it's sauteing, it will automatically turn off. That's just a safety feature. So if you see, if I press saute, it will say lid, and that means that it's going to turn that off. When I press the saute button like this, it will automatically default to normal, which is basically like a medium heat. So you can adjust the saute temperature, low or less or low, normal or medium, and more high. I always do it on high because I still feel like it's not quite powerful enough. So I'm going to press saute right here and then press the adjust button. That will make it go to more, less, normal. Once it's like already on that setting, you can't just go ahead and press adjust. It's not gonna work. You'll have to press cancel, saute, and then adjust again if you want to lower the heat. So after you press saute, it will say on, which means, okay, I got what you meant. I'm going to start heating up. This is going to say on until it's at its max temperature, at which point this will say hot. Already warming up, you can start using this, but when this is hot, that means that you know it's like max, high, totally preheated and ready to go. You also may have noticed when I pressed saute, there was the number 30 on here. The Instant Pot automatically will default to 30 minutes. You can't do more than 30 minutes at a time when you press the saute button. That's just a safety feature to ensure that this isn't sitting here like burning, cooking something when it's not supposed to be. If the Instant Pot runs out of that 30 minutes and you still need to saute something, press the cancel button, press the saute button again, and then it will just restart. The first thing I always do whenever I get a new Instant Pot is to do something called the water test. So what the water test does is just a really quick test cycle to make sure that the Instant Pot is working correctly, that it's going to come to pressure, that it's sealing okay, before I just like throw some dinner in there and ruin dinner. So the Instant Pot is still a little hot, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to add 1 to 2 cups of water into the Instant Pot. And like I said, since mine is hot, it's going to kind of steam and sputter. That's not normal if you don't preheat your pot. So I have 1 to 2 cups of water here. And that's good. I guess we know that it's hot from the saute. And then we're going to just do a quick test cycle. So put the lid on. Like I said, you line up that back part and then twist it on. It's going to make those cute little sounds whenever you turn it on and off. And then of course you want to turn your sealing knob from venting to sealing. Make sure it's just snug on their sealing. Now we're going to pressure cook the water for 5 minutes. So press the manual button. It defaults to the last thing we had it on, which is 240. We don't want that. So that's the max. I'm just gonna go up. So then it defaults to 0. We're gonna go 5 minutes, high pressure, and then what you do is just wait. As you wait, in a couple seconds, it will say on. After it says on, that's when you know, okay, the Instant Pot, we've got it. You want me to pressure cook this for 5 minutes. After it says on, it will stay on until it is starting to pressure cook. It's not pressurized yet. It's just starting to warm up. During this time, and as the pot is preheating, warming up, you'll hear some sputtering, some boiling. There might be some steam coming out of the top just a little bit, and that's completely normal, so don't worry. You'll know that the Instant Pot has completely pressurized when this display no longer says on and it says 5, or the number of minutes that you ask the Instant Pot to pressure cook. So in my case, when it is pressurized, it will say 5. Another way to know that it has completely pressurized is by looking at the lid. So right now you can hear and you can see there's some steam coming out of the Instant Pot. It's sputtering a little bit. That pin is starting to come up, and now it's totally flush with the lid, and you're not hearing anything leaking out of the Instant Pot. That is what you want. So now the Instant Pot says 5, it is starting to pressure cook. When it is pressure cooking like this and it says 5, now it's going to start counting down from the number of pressure cooking minutes you asked it to cook for. So this is gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. When it goes to 0, it will beep again, and then the display will say L for lapsed time. That tells you how many minutes have lapsed since the pressure cooking has stopped. So now that it's pressurized, the pin is up. That means that it is pushed up because of all that pressure in the Instant Pot here, and it's going to be pressurized for the next 5 minutes. After the 5-minute pressure cook time, the display will say L0000. And now this one has been naturally releasing the pressure for 7 minutes. So L stands for lapsed time, and then it will start counting up, telling you the number of minutes it has been done pressure cooking. When the Instant Pot has finished pressure cooking, it's still going to stay the same. Nothing's going to spurt out or anything. The pin at the top of the Instant Pot will still stay flush because it's still full of pressure. So in recipes, you'll see one of two things once you're done pressure cooking. The first one is a natural pressure release, and the second one is a quick release. A natural pressure release, or NPR, is when you allow the Instant Pot to just depressurize on its own. Eventually, the Instant Pot will allow enough of the air to just slowly sneak out, so then the pin will drop, the lid will depressurize, and then you can open the lid. Think of it like if you take a soda bottle and you shake it up, and then you just crack it just ever so slightly, and then you let that gas escape from the bottle just ever so slowly. That is a natural pressure release. With a quick release, it means that we're quickly going to turn the knob from sealing to venting, and then it's going to release that pressure, just like if you had that soda bottle and you just tore that cap off and it starts just going everywhere. So I'll show you right now. This is in the sealing position now. We are going to turn it to the venting position, and then it's going to release that pressure. Since it's already been depressurizing for about 7 minutes, it's not going to be super loud, but with this part, be warned, it's a little startling. So if you have pets, husbands, partners, spouses, children, animals, make sure that you kind of warn them that this might be a little startling. So we're gonna go from sealing here to venting. And you'll notice that that was very gentle because it's already been depressurizing. Then the pin will drop just like that, and then you know that now you can open the lid. Keep in mind that if your Instant Pot does not give you this L, that means that your Instant Pot does not have the keep warm button on. So you have to press this keep warm button. It's on by default, so don't turn it off. Otherwise, this will just say off when it's done pressure cooking. You'll also notice that there's lots of sounds when you press any of the buttons or sounds. If you don't like how loud it is, you can turn off the sound with this little hack. So I'm going to just press off, and then you press the minus button just like this until it says S off. That means sound off. Now, it's not going to make sound when you press the buttons, when you put the lid on and off, and it'll be much quieter. If you want to turn the sound back on, just do the opposite, which is to press the plus button like this, and then it will say S on, sound on. Another frequently asked question is, can I turn off the Instant Pot in the middle of a cook cycle? The answer is yes, absolutely. You can always turn this off whenever you need. So for example, let's say that I had my food in here and I pressed 5 minutes, but then when it said 4 minutes, I realized, oh, I forgot to put one of the ingredients in. What you can do is just press the off button, and then it will turn off. If it has been pressurized already, you'll want to turn the knob from sealing to venting, and then you'll have to wait for it to depressurize first. Once the pin goes down and it's depressurized, you can open the lid and then do anything that you need, and then resume your pressure cooking. One thing I always tell new Instant Pot cooks is to not move your Instant Pot while it's pressure cooking. I mean, you can, very gently move it, like along the counter where it's still plugged in, but don't like pick it up. Don't try and move where it's cooking, because this is a pressurized appliance. And don't unplug it while it's still pressurized and try and take it outside to depressurize. That could be so dangerous. So please don't move your Instant Pot while it's pressure cooking. If you need to just adjust or move it slightly, you can touch these little wings right here, or you can even touch the sides. They're warm, but they're not hot. Like I said, the lid is really hot. Don't ever use this handle as a carrying handle. This could slide right off, and whew, that's hot. Along those lines, I have a full video of 26 things to never do with your Instant Pot. Please go watch that after this video. Something a lot of people do is they cover the Instant Pot with a towel or rag while they're depressurizing their pot. This is totally not recommended. It goes against the manufacturer's warranty because it can accidentally suck in that rag. It can make it so your pot's never gonna open, and it's really a safety precaution. Here's something that you may not expect at first is there's very little to no evaporation in the Instant Pot. I dumped it back in the measuring cup and it's almost exactly what I put in there. So something to keep in mind when you're cooking is there's not going to be any evaporation. And if you have meat or vegetables, anything that has water, it's going to release that water and you're going to have more liquid in here than when you started. Because of that, people a lot of times complain that there's not enough flavor or that things are watered down, and that's completely normal. You have to kind of overcompensate for that, or what you can do is use the saute feature to reduce that liquid down so then you do get that flavor that you want. But just remember there's no evaporation in here, so you don't need a ton of liquid in order to pressure cook. You just need a minimum of 1 cup in a 6 quart, a minimum of about 1.5, 2 cups in an 8 quart, and I've gotten as low as half a cup in the 3 quart. So that's it. You're so ready to use your Instant Pot. Don't be too worried or concerned about it. Just do something really easy. That's like my #1 tip. Do something really simple. Don't do a whole dinner in here because you might get frustrated. You really need to get comfortable with it before you jump into a huge meal. So I have a whole bunch of recipes on my website, triedtestedandtrue.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at tried_tested_true. You can find me on TikTok, Pinterest, everything. All my YouTube videos, there's tons on beginner recipes, things I make every single week. This Instant Pot is going to be one of your best friends once you master it, and I know you are. So make sure you're subscribed so that you can learn more about the Instant Pot. Check out this playlist that has all of my Instant Pot 101 series, and for sure check out this next video, which is 26 things to never do with your Instant Pot. Thanks for watching, and I hope I see you next week. Bye.